Welcome to the class. Today we are going to look at two different types of complement clauses, and these two clauses begin with two different complementizers, whether and if. We look at a sentence, and when we work on accuracy in a sentence, and when we want to use multiple types of sentences for impressive speaking and for the purpose of conveying a lot, we need to look at the embedded clauses and particularly the elements which require attention for accuracy in producing sentences. In simple words, when we pay attention to the composition of a sentence with reference to how the computation of these sentences work in our subconscious, we equip ourselves better with better and impressive language. The computation also helps us know that a very complex looking sentence is also essentially just like a simple sentence, and the difference between a simple sentence and a complex sentence is simply in terms of the kinds of information they convey. Structurally, they look exactly alike. So, when we look at if and whether type of clauses, let's refresh our understanding of a sentence, that a sentence is a combination of a subject and predicate, where the predicate has verbs within them. The two parts of a sentence, that is subject and predicate, are connected with each other with certain visible and invisible functional elements like agreement, more specifically person, number and gender. Also, we need tense. So, these are the invisible functional elements which combine the two parts together. This happens to all sentences in English. Then, verbs have sometimes objects and sometimes they don't have. Likewise, we have adjuncts or we don't have adjuncts at times. So, when we say sentences like Raju likes Tamil movies is the object of the verb, transitive verb like, and Raju sleeps on the floor. Sleep is an intransitive verb, but on the floor is just an adverb. And this sentence does not have an object in it. So, what happens is, in a complex sentence, we have a predicate, and in which in the predicate we have a verb, and instead of a noun phrase like Tamil movies as an object, we have a sentence as the object of that verb, a complement as an object of the verb. That sentence is called complement clause, which is embedded within the predicate. I know what I am doing. In these types of sentences, what I am doing as a clause, as a sentence, is a complement, an object of the verb no. Raju confirmed that he will be joining the discussion. Here, the verb confirmed is a type which can take a complement clause as its object. In this regard, we understand that though these sentences are called complex sentences, but essentially they are also a combination of subject and predicate. And thus we get to know that a complex sentence is also essentially a simple sentence. What this helps us achieve is the fact that we get to know that there are some verbs like know, confirm, and many more. There is a huge list of verbs like ask, understand, and many more, which can take both a noun phrase or a sentence as complement. A noun phrase or a sentence as a complement. This is the crux of the matter that we need to know. And this also makes us know, helps us understand that not all verbs can take a sentence as a complement. So now when we move further and we look at uses of whether and if, and the kinds of sentences that we call whether clause or if clause, we know that they are complementizers. Complementizers simply mean elements in English which can introduce a complement. And essentially, this kind of clause is going to be embedded within the predicate. This is the important part to follow from the computation of elements of a sentence in human mind. And when we, keeping these things in mind, when we work and practice with these sentences and examples, we get better hands-on experience, hands-on understanding of a complex sentence and types of verbs which take embedded clause as an object. So these are, as a matter of fact, when we have these types of clauses, these clauses appear at the end of a sentence. All complements, heavy complements, all sentential complements are called heavy complements, and they occur at the end of the sentence. They appear in the form of an indirect question. This is the function of this whether and if type of complement. Why do we use them after all? It's one of the purpose of this type of the complement is to ask an indirect question, and therefore it adds mildness and helps us soften our language. You will see a lot of contexts when you don't want to ask a very direct question to somebody. In such cases, these kinds of sentences become very handy. I discussed this with you. Both of them work as complementizers, and the other function of this is they are used for sometimes they are used for expressing doubts or giving alternatives, offering alternatives. So either expressing doubts, offering alternatives, using them as indirect questions. These are the functions of whether and if type of clauses. Let's look at some examples. I don't know whether she will come. So look at this. No is another type, is one type of verb which can take a sentential complement, and the purpose of this sentential complement is to express uncertainty, doubt. It simply says, this person is not sure. She asked me if I was coming. This is if. This is another type of complement clause which begins with if. Ask is another verb which takes a sentential complement, and this is here the function is to check, to make sure. I cannot decide whether to accept the new job offer. Look at this clause. This is again a clause with whether complementizer, but here this clause is only an infinitival clause. So, in this case, where you have an infinitive, we only use whether. In this case, we cannot, in such situations, we cannot use if. That is, decide as a verb can take if complement, but if does not function as a complementizer to an infinitival clause. So these are the little intricate details about the embedded clause that we need to know just to elevate our understanding of complement clauses at a different position. Now, this is just the beginning of the differences between if and whether type of clauses, whether and if type of clauses. So, we use whether and not if before an infinitive to infinitive. Just saw the example. I am not sure whether to get a new laptop. This is an infinitival clause to get a new laptop. We can only use whether here, not if. As you have seen in the previous sentence, cannot decide whether to accept the new job offer. After a postposition, we use whether and not if. Another context where we cannot use if, there are doubts about whether the decision was fair. Now, this is a specific clause which is the complement clause of this noun doubt, and in this case we cannot use if in this place, whether. And the other context where we can use if, other context where we can use whether and not if is these type of sentences, like the question is whether or not we have the right, we have the right to interfere. In this kind of situation, whether or not, we can say if or not. So these are few cases, few contexts in which one can be used but not the other. That is, if and whether are both complementizers, but only one of them can be used and not the other. However, we do find contexts in which both are possible when or occurs later in the sentence. Like these contexts, it is not clear whether the source of information is reliable or not. We can stop here too. We don't need to say or not, but this is just making it formal and just making the sentence complete. It is not clear whether the structure, whether the source of information is reliable. If you stop here, the sentence is fully grammatical. But in a more formal context, we say it is not clear whether the source of information is reliable or not. In this context, we can also use if. It is not clear if the source of information is reliable. but the use of if makes the context informal, and use of whether keeps it formal, keeps the level of formality maintained. So, the other point to elaborate is to keep in mind that only certain types of verbs like ask, tell, unsure, understand can take any kind of complement, and particularly if type of complement. Not every verb that takes a complement clause can take whether or if type of complement clause. So I'm just giving you few points to keep them in mind and to practice them and figure out the patterns which work as constraint for functioning of these structures. And the striking point is these are intuitively clear to the speakers, those who acquire the language intuitively, but they require a lot of practice for those who want to learn these things after 15 years of age. However, it is possible to get these structures right if we look at the patterns, the way speakers of English acquire these things as a child. If we understand that process, if we pay attention to that process and find the pattern through which certain types of structures are possible and certain things are not possible, then we get very close to the native intuition. So basically, what we need to keep in mind about whether or if type of whether and if type of clauses is they are complementizers. They introduce a complement, but there are more contexts in which they can be different types of complement. They don't have to be a complement of the predicate all the time, because we just explained it to you. Not every verb that requires a complement that can take a complement clause will take whether type of complement clause. They start an embedded clause for sure. Everywhere we use them, they start an embedded clause, and that's how they introduce a clause as well. So, and we need to pay attention to both structural patterns as intricacies of a structure and functional purposes, that is the context in which these can be used for us to be able to use them appropriately. Keeping these few things in mind, we can reach close to the competence that native speakers of any language, in this case English, or the better way to put it is those who acquired English as their first language, we can reach their competence by paying attention to the underlying patterns very quickly. Thank you. We look forward to a discussion on these types of complement clauses. Until then, thank you.